this poem came through just as quickly as I could write it, and it was the most revitalizing experience of my life. It was as though I joined forces with something greater and more inspired than myself, and it's like all my energy channels opened at once, and I was in this a complete harmony with myself and the muse and inspiration, and there wasn't any doubt and there wasn't any insecurity. And that was this channel that opened that hasn't closed since.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a truly extraordinary poet, Chelan Harkin. Her work is likened to the mystical poets Rumi, Hafiz, and Khalil Gibran. And she became public, or publicly known about 4 years ago, I think, when her couple of poems that she put out that, originally was just to your mom saying, oh, it's really good. And then all of a sudden, like 2 of them went viral. So it was like 50,000 in about 2 days, which is just really profound. So Chelan has now published 4 books. Most recently this past year is The Prophetess. And I am so excited to welcome you to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's a joy.
Wonderful. So I thought we would start out with something that I was thinking about. So you don't have to convince me. No one has to convince me that poetry is a really important and good thing and meaningful in the world. And then I think of other folks, like initially my nephew, who you met yesterday, who was like, poetry? What do you mean you're having a brunch on poetry? I haven't read it since 3rd grade. And then he was completely enthralled. So I was curious if you had some thoughts on, why do you think poetry is good? And why mystical poetry?
So really all I can speak to, because it's most intimate for me, is the power of what I call mystical poetry, which is more of an energetic transmission.
Yes.
It's more like energy work transferred to the reader, or to the reader, the listener, so that their energy channels are unlocked and opened as they experience it.
No, I think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful answer that it evokes something or wakes something up.
Yeah, and then also poetry can be a wonderful tool to get beneath. You can make profound statements about human nature, or political statements even, or things that often would create resistance or pushback if not a certain type of poetic language was used. But it's kind of like this tricky way to get beneath some of the human armor. Kind of sneaks into a deeper level and has this impact that isn't somehow polarizing.
Yeah, I think that it is inherently unifying in the way that it speaks to deeper truths. And, there's the poet Jory Graham speaks about this. And when I read this, I first was like, oh, that's true to my heart, that poetry is about uniting us to each other and to the planet and to the greater cosmos. It hits that place that's, deeper than rational thought.
Yeah.
It hits the unconscious. It hits deeper than the unconscious. And it sort of, like you said, it kind of sneaks in there.
Yes.
I know the poem that you wrote, The Worst Thing. I was wondering if you might read that for us, because you sort of struggled with that at first, right?
Yeah. I did have to grapple with, do I have the right to make these claims or to say that? And it's interesting. I think that those kinds of self-doubts can really limit artists of all kinds. And so that's something I love advocating for, is just, we all have the power and the right, as much as anyone does, to put our truth and our voice forth and our power forth. So this is called The Worst Thing. The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting out the holy from our bones, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made a hard commitment to see as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying closeness from your heart. The worst thing we ever did was take the dance and the song out of prayer, made it sit up straight and cross its legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean its hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in this universe, available to every soul in every breath.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
I love hearing that poem. The first time I read it, I just was like, that's just so spot on. And where you talk about prying closeness from the heart. And I mean, I think that is what it is. That way in which, hey, we are connected to each other. We're connected to all of this. There's this deeper space for everyone. And I partly feel like that's why, these are messages that we need to hear in the world today. The other thing about the aspect of the sacred, like taking the sacred out of the ordinary, or as if it's only something that's in church, as opposed to that which maybe we can experience every day. Mm-hmm. And, I think that people might be really interested. I know you've talked about your journey a lot of times, but you've had such a fascinating experience as a person, as a poet. And like, there's two questions. One is, have you been writing poetry your whole life? Is it something that you knew that when you were a child that you were going to be doing, or you were doing? And then, you found this incredible poem when you were 17 through your therapist at the time from Hafiz, and then started your prayer experiment. And I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit of this, like your journey.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. So when I came into the world really with this interesting clarity of like, just without a doubt, we're here to share our light with each other and celebrate each other and celebrate this existence and live our authentic love. And at night, before I would go to bed, my mom would ask if I had any prayers to say, and I would just spin off like all these, and she would write some of them down, all these like kind of mystical prayers, from a 2 or 3 year old's perspective. So that was kind of a part of me. And then I kind of buried that light and that expression intentionally, like tried to bury that alive for many years, which was a real enormous hazard for
intentionally?
My wellness. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was this feeling of like, oh God, this will be wounded if it's exposed. And so my sort of soul's recovery and my excavation of this poetic gift and love were really completely intertwined.
Yes.
And so I didn't know what mystical poetry was. I didn't know what mysticism meant or anything like that. And then at age 17, I was in this therapy session. And talk therapy, I hadn't been exposed to any alternative types of therapy or somatic therapy or anything like that. So I kind of thought talk therapy was all there was to help me get to where I wanted to go. And it wasn't really working for me. So I was feeling extremely hopeless. And after months working with a beautiful therapist, and not getting too far, he thought to read me this Hafez poem called "You Don't Have to Act Crazy Anymore." And just in that, it was a short poem. But it had this unlocking effect, like I was talking about. Like it was this profound, energetic transmission. Yeah. That for that moment, it somehow, in ways I didn't understand, unlocked all this armor around my heart and being. And in that unlocking, it was like my consciousness could connect with something that was real and true and alive and undamaged inside of myself. And that was the most profound experience I had known in my adolescent life. And it was a huge imprint. And there was this sense of whatever that poem was, I don't know what kind of magic that just did, but I need to do that. I need to be near that. I need to somehow recover and find that tool and use it.
I think that's such a beautiful story because it's exactly that example of where poetry cuts deeper to the core, or that Hafez poetry reached your suppressed poetry.
Yes.
And there was this alignment that just like
yes,
opened up, that just sitting, not just sitting. I mean, I'm a therapist.
Yes.
Yes. But it's true. Like, right? It just reaches deeper.
Yes.
And it speaks in a way that speaks the unspoken. I mean, wow. I mean, that's great that your therapist even had the idea to like, okay, I think this might reach her, or I don't know, who knows how that happened? Who knows?
I'm so enormously grateful for that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, as you say that, like realizing in that poem too, which this can happen in these types of mystical poems, it both empathizes with the struggle deeply and it awakens the soul simultaneously somehow.
And then you fell in love with Hafez a little bit.
I fell in love with Hafez. I loved most profoundly the redefinition of God that poetry offered, from something that was stern and distant and judgy and conditional to something that was available and playful and wholehearted and intimate. That was so it would just put this life energy. It opened me. And I think that's one of the most important gifts that I've received, is that profound inspired imprint.
Yeah, that's it makes me think about how poetry in this way is healing to an individual, but also healing to society, because it speaks the truths that society has repressed, or the globe. I mean, I'm talking about global society.
Yes.
And when I think about your poetry and how your poetry does this too, it's like, it was funny because I was trying to write out my thoughts, and I was like, it's not just like your poetry invokes vitality.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
But it's just like I think about like, when someone's healing or they're not doing well, they lose their vital signs, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's an infusion in this way of life. I was thinking about this with healing and suffering, and how, just with the example of the Hafez poem, you demonstrate how that's a part of your growth process and a path to starting to write poetry.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. That is really the foundation of this writing journey for me, is finding new way to relate to suffering. So, so at 17, there was this sort of pollination of this love for this style of poetry. And then at age 21, this channel cracked open through me, and poetry began.
Tell us about the channel cracking.
I'd love to. It's a good story. Yeah. So, there was this knowing that I was, there was sort of a soul need to write and share poetry, and that like that it wasn't a luxury, that my wellness, my happiness would be deeply impacted if I didn't find a way to really open this up and bring this forward. But I had all of these really complex layers of perfectionism and self-doubt, and I needed encouragement. Anyway, but I was stuck and so stopped up. And but there was this very powerful also drive to share poetry. So I recognized that I'd been so afraid of people's judgment, writing poetry, writing poetry that people didn't receive or value. And so, and that fear of doing something wrong, making a mistake, doing something bad was really unconsciously driving my life in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was, I don't know, inspired, really, it felt like, to just try this very intentional experiment where for 30 days I was going to intentionally give myself full permission to write a bad poem every day and share it. And that just, it brought that huge obstacle, that huge fear from the unconscious shadows, where those things that are resisted and held in the shadows, they really do drive and control our lives. And then bringing that up, it was, first of all, it was like so much energy was released because I wasn't fighting against that anymore. I was working with it.
Yes.
And that huge force that had been this boulder to my soul's expression now became almost like fuel.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And so the second day of the experiment, I was sitting in the computer lab at Evergreen State College. And I was sticking with my experiment. Set my timer for an hour. I was going to write my bad poem or whatever. And, not that it had to be bad, but it could be, which just made me more open to myself. And I had a characteristically completely new experience of the creative process. Just before, when I'd written, it had been kind of stressed and strained and tense shoulders, and it would take me months to stitch something together. And this poem came through just as quickly as I could write it. And it was the most revitalizing experience of my life. And it was as though I joined forces with something greater and more inspired than myself. And it's like all my energy channels opened at once, and I was in a complete harmony with myself and the muse and inspiration, and there wasn't any doubt and there wasn't any insecurity. And that was this channel that opened that hasn't closed since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
Yes.
And it's that channel, part of the reason that the channel opened was because you gave yourself permission for it to be not good.
Yes.
Or like, I'm going to write a bad poem, or it could be a bad poem.
Yep.
And let's get into this mess and who cares?
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes. Totally.
And something released in that process.
It did. And it taught me so much about just creating a safe environment for our creative expression. And if we kind of externalize that, like any one of us would feel so much more open and free if in a social environment we weren't going to be judged and scorned and belittled and cast out if we made a mistake.
Yeah.
If we felt like we would be scared.
Yeah.
And so it just, the relationship between creative expression and emotional safety is big.
It's interesting. I feel like you make a really good point too, where that kind of like fear or, holding back or pushing down, self-criticism, like how much energy that takes and how exhausting it is.
Yes. Oh, it's huge. We talked about this woman, Anita Johnston, yesterday, and in her book that inspired me so much, also at this time in my life, at age 21, this book of hers, Eating in the Light of the Moon, she describes that with the best metaphor of emotional repression being like having this big beach ball and being in a swimming pool and trying to hold it down and swim across the pool, and you can't let it up, and still trying to have fun on top of that, and then it flips out of the water and it goes all out of control, and then you try to get it and push it down again. I mean, that would take all the joy out of the swimming experience.
Yes.
And I just think that's the best metaphor, because
it's a
that's
great
how
metaphor.
It feels. All of our otherwise joy and life force and energy that can be generative and creative just goes into holding those energies down. Yeah.
Because you're trying to fit into something that's not necessarily you, or, you've been told, or that kind of historical conditioning, whether it's social or familiar or whatever it is.
Yes, exactly.
So we were talking about the poem that came through after you were doing your bad poetry experiment, which I think everybody who wants to write poetry could do, a bad poetry experiment. But go ahead, please, if you don't mind, would you read the Say Wow poem, which was the one that just like blew up the internet?
I'd be so happy to. Okay, Say Wow. Each day before our surroundings become flat with familiarity, and the shapes of our lives click into place, dimensionless and average as Tetris cubes. Before hunger knocks from our bellies like a cantankerous old man, and the duties of the day stack up like dishes, and the architecture of our basic needs commissions all thought to construct the 4-door sedan of safety. Before gravity clings to our skin like a cumbersome parasite, and the colored dust of dreams sweeps itself obscure in the vacuum of reason. Each morning, before we wrestle the world and our heart into the shape of our brain, look around and say, wow. Feed yourself fire. Scoop up the day entire like a planet-sized bouquet of marvel sent by the universe directly into your arms, and say, wow. Break yourself down into the basic components of primitive awe and let the crescendo of each moment carbonate every capillary, and say, wow. Yes, before our poems become calloused with revision, let them shriek off the page of spontaneity. And before our metaphors get too regular, let the sun stay, a conflagration of homing pigeons that fights through fire each day to find us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have to say, I was when you were talking about hunger, my stomach started rumbling. We have to leave. Don't cut that sound out. It's funny. But also the idea of feeding yourself fire. That's going to stay with me for a long time. So, where does prayer fit into this aspect of the opening? How did that fit in with the context of the bad poetry writing experiment?
Oh, good question. Prayer. I really love the subject of prayer. And I never knew I would be saying that. There's so many moments these days where I say things and I think about how my younger self would be like, wow, Chelan's announcing that she loves the subject of prayer. Huh. But so that hadn't, my experiment and experience with authentic prayer, I like to call it, hadn't kicked off at age 21 at all.
Okay.
So really that began, fast forward 12 years to when I was finally ready to publish my book. And I had, so this channel opened at age 21 and poetry just kept flowing through like that. And so I had a massive collection of poems. But I hadn't moved forward at all, even the tiniest amount in like publishing those, because I wanted a publishing house to just discover me somehow. I had this fairy godmother syndrome, and validate me and fly me to the highest heights and promote me without me having to do anything vulnerable or exposing or hard. So anyway, so that didn't happen. And so, like 12 years later, at the end of 2020, a lot of things were kind of breaking down, and in that kind of this energy of like, what the hell, I might as well try to move forward with this, emerged just barely enough confidence to take this step forward with publishing my book.
Did you feel like, what do I have to lose?
There was a little bit of that, but I didn't have any. Part of why I'd put it off for so long was it was such a great dream of mine. It was the deepest hope of my life to be able to have my work received widely enough that I could, justify financially, and otherwise just really pouring myself into it. And so it felt like it would be a big loss, if that didn't happen. But I needed to confront that. And but at the time, like you said, it was really just my mom and her 2 or 3 close friends that were my my platform, and grateful to them. They gave me a lot of encouragement, but I didn't have any marketing support or any connections in the publishing world or any platform at all. And I'd committed to publishing this book. And what happened was I bought some Hafiz books because I had decided to self-publish this book. And I didn't know how to do that. My technical skills are low. And so I needed to learn about formatting and all these things. So I remembered the formatting of the Hafiz books was beautiful. And I wanted to...
This is the Daniel Ladinsky.
The Daniel Ladinsky Hafiz books, yeah. And so I was going to just emulate that format. So I bought these books and I opened them and I was amazed at how inspired I was again. Oh, and in that moment of reading this first Hafiz poem, I had this, again, I've only really had this twice. One was with the bad poem experiment impulse that was something, it was like I couldn't cast out as just a passing thought. It was something that I had to do. And in this moment too, there was a similar thing, and it was I need to experiment with asking my favorite dead poets, Hafez included, for marketing support with his book.
You said it felt like it was something that you had to do. You just felt something. You felt it. Like there's an embodied sense and awareness.
Yeah. Like, maybe I could describe it as like if I didn't do it, if I didn't listen to it, it wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
And it would get louder and more obnoxious almost.
Fascinating.
Or uncomfortable. Yeah. So every night before, it was like 2 weeks before the book was published, I'd put my kids to bed and I would go on a walk around my block and just really, and it was vulnerable. It was a little awkward. It was, a lot of me was like, you look crazy, Chelan. Like I would walk around my block talking to my favorite dead poets. So there was a little group of them, and the chairmen were Hafiz and Khalil Gibran.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it became, I started to really look forward to it. And I just would say, in the name of love and truth and liberation for, as many people as this would really reach and support, like, please somehow tap all of the marketing execs behind the veil and anyone in this world who can help, and let's get this show going. And I would start to get energized, and I loved it.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
Yes, and also this gave me some empowerment to keep doing it. Is that as soon as I began this experiment, what had been a steady trickle of inspiration became absolutely torrential and an inconvenience to my life. So, about a third of the poems in Susceptible to Light, that first book that went out, came through in those 2 weeks.
Oh, fascinating!
And so the book was going to be at least a third shorter, and so many of them had this wild tone of this sort of signature of Hafez energy that was wild. So. Yeah. So that was
well, and then you ended up getting an email, or you got an email from Daniel Ladinsky, right?
That's the only reason I have any confidence to share about this wacky experience publicly, is because it's had such astonishing results. Honestly, So about 2 weeks into the publishing of this book, I got an email in my inbox completely out of the blue from Daniel Ladinsky, the renderer of Hafez poetry.
Right.
And he said, "Hi, Chelan. I'm Daniel Ladinsky. I don't know if you know who I am." I was like, oh my God, that moment is so vivid in my being. It was completely, I describe as the cork coming out of existence, and just part of me just becoming intoxicated.
Wow.
Forevermore. And
that's incredible.
I don't know if you know who I am. I've done the renderings of Hafez poetry that have made him something of a superstar to the Western world. I'm a reclusive poet in Taos, and I tend to not reach out to anybody. But I saw your book on Amazon, and I had this strange nudge to reach out to you and say congratulations. And so that was, and then I responded to him with all of these. I think I used a few expletives. I was just so overwhelmed, and I told him the whole story. And I mean, it was totally.
Did you tell him about walking around talking to the dead poet? Okay,
my response to him was the most over the top response, and I shared with him some of the poems that had come through, and then half an hour later it was like, oh my, what did I just do? Why did I send him that email? It was so unhinged almost. But then he wrote back to me and said, "Well, Chelan, now I see why I reached out to you. I've been looking for a poet to co-author a book with. You're the one. Let's go."
I think that's just awesome.
It was so beyond wild.
And didn't he or you or someone said that Hafez was kind of like working behind the scenes and connecting you and nudging you and nudging him, and it's just, I just love that. Because for everyone to know, Hafez is a 14th century Persian mystical poet.
Yes, exactly. And then it turns out Daniel Ladinsky also wrote the foreword to the extended edition of The Prophet, and by Khalil Gibran, who was the other person on my A team. Yeah, and then Daniel went ahead and, in like hyperbolic poetic language, endorsed me to all the major publishing houses of the world, and he completely initiated that.
Wonderful.
And so anyway.
And now you have 4 books published.
Now I have 4 books published, and then that really anchored in my, like, oh my God, it's really worthwhile to continue with more energy this experiment with prayer. And it was just like, oh my God, can it really be real?
Yeah.
That we're so interconnected, and that our intentions and our words can activate this network of possibility that opens doors that just, by all kind of rational understanding, really couldn't be opened otherwise.
I have so many like associations and thoughts as you're speaking, and I feel like so one is that, so that network of associations, right? And the prayer, and like Hafez popping in. And I was thinking about the way that you described your prayer as well. It was kind of like this joyful, fun prayer. And it was also, you said, may I do this to be in service of like sharing this with people that to help people, right? So like it was service oriented. It wasn't like, can you please, I don't think, like, can you please make me super important and famous and blah, blah, blah. It was like, so that I can do this because I feel like it's my life's purpose and because I want it to reach people and hopefully help people, right? So there was that aspect to it. And then I also think of, on the one hand, I was like, okay, wait, so Danielle Ladinsky is kind of like the fairy godmother, but not. And like, how do we find like the sense of balance in this?
Yes.
Right? And so one step further, bear with me.
Yeah, I love this.
Is that then like, okay, so prayer. I think you've talked about being afraid to pray. I think we're all afraid to pray. I could just speak for myself. Like, I'm afraid to pray and not be answered, but I'm afraid to pray and be answered.
Oh, yes. Good point.
And what happens when it doesn't get answered? And then what do we do with all this?
I love this. Yes. Yeah. Well, you touched on so many rich things in that. So like, this was also a real educator for me about like authentic service, I guess, because I'd had a model of like, just have to, I think this is a pretty common one, just have to give whether or not I'm in alignment with that giving.
Right.
Whether or not it also serves the fountain of my energy that can then keep expanding and growing.
Exactly.
I just need to be depleted and give, and that makes me good.
Right.
And so,
good point.
Or the I want to be rich and famous. The flip side of that.
And not give anything to anybody.
Yeah,
no, I'm just
forget
kidding.
everyone else. So this was this real experience of genuinely feeling like I want this fully for myself and for everyone. They're one and the same.
I like that.
In this kind of alignment space. Yeah, and so then and I'm still scared after all of this great feedback. It's still scary to pray these authentic prayers. That it's really vulnerable.
Yeah.
To even admit to ourselves, which is maybe the same thing you could say as admitting it to the great all, but what we really desire. And then there's something about speaking it too that really makes us conscious about it. We can sort of unconsciously ruminate about it, but it can sort of we're still at a little bit of a safe distance in that. And when we speak it, and it also affirms the possibility of our power to us, and that can be threatening too. And so it's a big thing to say these authentic prayers, and it still it freaks me out. It still freaks me out in the best of ways, but like all that has opened from this experiment, because I haven't done this all that much, and just all that has emerged from this bit of
it's been fast
and big. I do think this sort of exploration, excavation of self-knowledge, so that we're in alignment with what's most true inside of us, and then this willingness to burn through the limiting thoughts and limiting emotions has been part of what has opened this up. And also the willingness to act or to ask, and then the willingness to act too. And then I do feel like you said, the fairy godmother comes in, or there's this relationship where the universe does come in, and it's almost like riding an e-bike or something. You have to put in the effort for the extra force.
Oh, yeah, to help
or,
you. Yeah,
know,
it's great.
It has
It's a
to
great
be
analogy.
an active thing, or else it doesn't move at all. Or
Yeah.
like catching a wave, a good surfing wave or something. I feel like when the universe has its hand in it, just taught me so much about the principles of the universe. It is not a scarce withholding place. Like it's so generous.
Yes.
And it wants us to receive.
And prayer in that way has such a sense of intimacy. So I kind of like that you're like, okay, I'm going to do it and I feel kind of silly and I'm bringing levity to it because the intimacy is intense.
Yeah.
And then it also, that it doesn't mean that you should just pray and that it's like all of a sudden it will just come to you.
Yes.
And it made me think of this Sufi parable or saying, which is like, if you're climbing a mountain and there's like a rock, a big boulder falling at you, pray, but can you please also move out of the way?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. So I like that you said that, because there's this idea, people are annoyed for great reason with, something horrible, something catastrophic happening in the world. And then people saying, prayer, you have my prayers or whatever. Because that's been a pretty empty, it seemed like a pretty empty thing. But for prayer to be this way of, like activating both inspired action and then opening possibilities that then we still have to choose to walk through in a way that we do have to put our neck out to do that.
Yeah.
Because then we have to encounter all the reasons we haven't lived in a fuller way.
Exactly.
In the past, which brings up all of our obstacles too.
And that there can be sometimes quite a bit of suffering in that process and opening.
Yes. So that's important to say. Like this has been the dream of dreams deluxe the last 4 years, and it's been the most extreme encountering of the suffering, because to receive it and open to it, I've needed to confront and move through all of these a lot of old models.
So I wanted to touch on that briefly again, and then talk about the Prophetess, because in the Prophetess you tell us that suffering is sacred. And maybe if you would read I'll give you, your choice of 2 suffering poems.
Excellent.
One is Thanks to Suffering, and one is Our Great Cocoon.
Sure.
If you might read, and then we could even possibly elaborate, and then I'd really like to talk kind of about the Prophetess.
Great. Okay, I'll read Our Great Cocoon.
Okay,
sweet. Our Great Cocoon. Suffering is our great cocoon. Your budding wings might not be ready for you to fully emerge in your lifetime. But tending to this sacred process of no longer repressing or projecting your sorrow, but letting it transform you as it's intended, is still profoundly noble and meaningful work. Stay strong, dear one. Whether or not you taste the sky, you are building the future of humanity's wings.
So just so you know, when you read that, like I can feel it.
I so appreciate that. Because suffering can be such a lonely journey.
Yeah.
And so to get the feedback that that has been turned into something that can reach people meaningfully and do something beautiful just means so much.
Because it's so meaningful when you hit that place, right? And nobody wants to be in suffering,
right? And
yet, unfortunately, it's part of human life. So it's the alchemy of it is just marvelous. And I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about, what is the Prophetess and how did this unfold? And, the prophet was Khalil Gibran, and then there's this beautiful quote in the Prophet about the next step is the voice of a woman.
Yeah.
And anyway, I thought you would just tell us the story of how this came to be in the call.
Definitely. Yeah. So this has just been the most extraordinary journey. I think it was 2 Septembers ago. I can't remember. Time is a little slippery these days. I just put my kids to bed. It was just a very humdrum, kind of ordinary domestic moment. I think I was running a bath or something. And just got sort of this lightning bolt almost of energy that came through me. And an energy, when a poem comes, it's this energy that it's almost like this, it's like I translate it into the poem
like
that it
channeling.
wants to be. Yeah. And so in this moment, it was like that, but the voltage was way higher than ever before.
Ooh.
But it was like something activated and open and unlocked, and it translated to say, it's time to write the Prophetess and you're the one to do it, and like, go. Yeah. And then I just like turned off the bath, like ran and got a notebook and wrote basically 4 chapters, like the core of 4 of the chapters that night.
Huh.
Yeah. And it was just started streaming. And it really felt like it was time, and it was irrepressible. There was no way this book wasn't going to be written. And then in 2 months, I had all the content for the book. It was done. It needed to be like organized, basically. But I had all the content. So much came through that first night. Well, I really was like, oh my God, I'm really going to do this. I'm going to take this as far as it can go. And my commitment in that moment, because I had such amazing respect for Khalil Gibran and the book, The Prophet. And I like said to him, I said, I promise this book will 100% be written in a flow and joy, and not one word of it will be forced or a filler or coming from that place. Like, this is meant to be done in complete ease and joy. And it completely was 100% of the process. Yeah. And then I reached out to one of the publishing houses that Daniel had connected me with, and they basically accepted it almost immediately, which was unusual. And then as soon as the manuscript was done and I turned it in, Penguin Random House bought that publishing house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is amazing because they also carried The Prophet. Yeah. And
cool.
Yeah, and The Prophet had just come into the public domain. It was almost like it had done its time, and now it was just delivered to the world to be used. So we could use quotes from it on the cover without needing permission or whatever.
Fantastic. And it was also, wasn't it the 100-year anniversary of The Prophet as well?
That I signed the contract on the 100-year anniversary of The Prophet being published, which was wild. And then while I was writing this book, I didn't read The Prophet at all, because I didn't want to, I don't know, I didn't want to compare this book to that or try to be like that. But when I had turned in the manuscript, I did read it. And the last chapter, which I'd completely forgotten, it had been years since I'd read that book. It's all a prophecy about the return of the inspiration that had moved him. And the last line of the book is, a little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me.
It's incredible.
Which was just so cool. So many wild happenings on this journey.
Tell us more about like the other part of like how you met the nephew.
Great nephew.
Great nephew. Okay.
So this, when you asked that, I felt full body shivers again, and so this element, it was like as if enough hasn't occurred. I think
it's going to keep happening.
The universe knows how, like, part of me still just is hard-headed. And so, but all of that hard-headedness is just being absolutely demolished bit by bit. But so, in January, I gave a online course on manifestation, sharing a lot of these principles. And there were 4 people from Hawaii, the big island, that showed up and invited me to visit them.
Nice.
One said, come to Hawaii. One said, come swim with whales in Hawaii.
Ooh.
One said, come build your retreat center on our land in Hawaii.
Wow.
And the 4th one said, come meet Hajjar Gibran, Khalil's great nephew, who lives right down the street from me. He's a good friend and he'd love to meet you. And it was that one that I was like, are you kidding me? And I mean, just that happened at a manifestation course was it was almost absurdism.
It's absurdism.
It was absurd.
It's great.
Yeah. So then I bought my tickets the next week and stayed with Hajjar Gibran.
Oh.
So Hajjar, Khalil Gibran's great nephew, who I didn't know existed, has also written a contemporary continuation of The Prophet, had a life-changing mystical experience with his great uncle Khalil, and also, like me, worked for many years as a hypnotherapist.
Oh my gosh.
And has land.
Synchronicity.
Yes, and has land in Hawaii that we're exploring now, building together the Gibran Center, a temple for awakening.
Oh, wow.
On the so yeah.
So you're actively building this Gibran Center.
Well, that was one of the purposes of the visit, was to really talk with him about that. So he's designing. So he also, as it should happen, has an amazing organization, amazing inspired organization called Dome Gaia, where he just cares about empowering people to learn how to build these both affordable and extraordinary living spaces.
Fantastic.
So he is currently designing the Gibran Temple, a Center for Awakening, where we'll host all kinds of
fantastic,
meaningful things. It's just beyond belief, this one.
It's just yet another synchronicity.
It's another synchronicity. And also he and I, this was almost the most amazing thing. Because honestly, like, it's been hard for me to find deep belonging in this world, in my social spaces.
Yeah.
And well, this poem's called the Great Cocoon, and I do feel like the last 4 years have been something of a cocoon, and then the last few months I've been kind of breaking out of it.
Yes.
And I feel like I've been connecting with butterfly people who have been through this journey and are.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. And so Hajjar was one of these souls, and we just we met for the first time, and it felt like we've known each other for eternity.
I wanted to kind of go into the darker side or the shadow, and there's just you've written some things about anger and death and the shadows and the prophetess, and I think it's important. It's so many of the things that you've described also are certainly awesome, and we have talked about some scary things too. But I wanted first to talk about death, anger, and the shadows.
Yes.
And then also ask you about awe and the way that it can sometimes feel scary. Like, I don't know, is it scary to feel like a lightning bolt is going through your body?
Yes. Good question. I've been scared since the beginning of this amazing force that started with this poem, Say Wow, that moved through me at age 21 on the heels of the bad poem experiment. It was I in love with it and scared of it, both.
Yeah.
Completely enamored with it and scared. And so it would come through me. I'd write it. I'd write the poem. I'd share it, and then it was almost like I would kind of go hide a little bit or contract, or I was like it had done its thing. I'd given it away. And then I would go away from it. And then there was something about, getting this box of books of the Prophetess, and also listening to the audiobook, where there was a bit of a holy shit, like, whoa, like there was a realization of, this has been too big for me to hold. I've been scared of it. The puny, the small parts of my being, the parts that are really kind of addicted to being small, have been really threatened by this.
That's actually really cool. Because you have that, I really liked that poem that you wrote, God's Mule, which is also, I think, kind of playful and fun. And when you just said this thing about feeling addicted to being small, it made me think of that, that way in which, that's that profound conditioning of what you're supposed to do and should do.
Yeah.
So I would love it if you would read that poem.
Absolutely.
Too.
Okay, God's Mule. Each poem tries to smuggle a bundle of God into your heart. If it's good, tucked away just right, the security officers in your mind won't catch it. If they do, they might try to send it back. This stuff will mess up our rules and our sense of order, they outcry. They'll make a great fuss and have this light confiscated and quarantined to the small box of their judgments. I used to hold back, scared of being sniffed out, but now I deal to anyone even remotely interested in the sweetest hit of the remembrance of home.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Kind of goes back to that. What are we why are we here? You know, what are we supposed to be doing here? We're not supposed to be hiding out from ourselves.
Right.
And, you know, you talk about that in The Prophetess. You say, we are here to touch the tender cheek of reality, like to fully participate in our lives, to be in true contact with reality.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by reality? This place?
This place of
seeing and being in a more full-hearted,
Yeah.
poetic, open,
Yes.
terrifying way?
Yeah, I would say what I mean by it is creating an environment in ourselves in which we're animated by life with a capital L.
Yeah.
Which actually, anyway, Khalil Gibran also talks about life with a capital L, which
does
is
he?
wild
Does he
because I
really?
didn't reread his book at all. Anyway, and so do I in The Prophetess. Just an interesting thing.
That's great.
But yeah, so being animated by, I guess you could call the will of life, and then realizing, oh my God, that's actually intimately connected with my highest, most satisfied joy. But rather than our lives being moved from this forced a place of our conditioned ideas about how we should be and the limited ways of limited ways of who we think we are. And
Yeah, I have that's so interesting. I have two thoughts on that. One is that my eyes went to what you wrote about death in The Prophetess that I wrote down, and you said, "For we hold fear to protect us from death, though with it we ward off life." And I think that's so poignant, and it made me, I forget now, it's like someone famous, this is a line from someone famous, but it was in a play, and the main actor is depressed, and he walks around, and they're like, "Oh, you're going to kill yourself?" And he's like, "Why waste a bullet on a corpse?"
oh, wow.
But you know, this way in which,
Yes.
what does it really mean to be alive?
Totally. And then there's a lot of like spiritual rhetoric about love and fear are separate. And if you have fear, then you're not being loving, or like that could make it sound like what we should do is actually reject our fear. And that's not what I mean. What I mean is that we need to go into those fears, bring consciousness into the body and meet that rather than act it out, rather than have it drive us for the rest of our days, which is what it does when it's unconscious. And when we're afraid of it, when we're judging it, is when we keep it unconscious. And we need to meet that energy, because all of this suffering that we've labeled and judged and been terrified of, when it acts out unconsciously, again, it can wreak all kinds of horrific havoc. But when it's met with the loving energy of consciousness, it becomes any energy becomes an extraordinary ally to our transformation. It isn't anger, rage, terror, whatever. It's not it's not bad. It's revitalizing, and it doesn't have to do any harm when we receive it rather than resist or react from it.
See it, receive it, meet it.
Yes.
And it alchemizes. That's like, you say that too about anger. It's a life force, okay? Underscore life force that moves through us. And if you bottle it, again, the same beach ball analogy of how exhausting that is.
Yes.
But you don't want to like act it out either.
No, you don't want to act it out either. We need to learn how to meet it. And just in meeting it with the presence of consciousness, it's transformed into a whole new life-serving creative force.
Yeah, beautifully said. So beautifully said. It's like you have also in The Prophetess, the moon would be much less alluring if she only knew the luminous side of her wholeness.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you're saying.
Absolutely. That there's a beautiful gift in these shadows, and also in, and I make it sound easy almost, and I want to be careful not to. Like, it is what we need to be learning. When we're not doing that, we're separated from life force itself, and we feel scarce and we act like idiots. But so that's really important that we learn how to do that. But often we need support. We need our light that goes in to meet the shadow needs to be bigger than the shadow. And so often we need to call other people into the sacred process of alchemizing that. And that is such an honor and a gift. And that's how we find intimacy and connection and true service and true love for each other. And and without the shadow, we wouldn't need each other as much, but we're each other's midwives of our awakening.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I love how you just explored and said that. It's really meaningful. And it's so important because I think, we do need support. And when you talk about it with those moments of authenticity with other people, and I also think of those moments of support with, your dead poets or, the life force of God or nature, that it's that engaging that and being open to that so you don't feel alone with it. That's the disaster.
Yes, that's true. And I want to say also, because a lot of my journey, I have gotten a lot of support from in this alchemizing process, largely from fantastic therapists, but also prayer as a tool to bring more light in, like asking for that. That's one of the main prayers that I say is I ask for more light to come in so that I have the resilience and resources to actually alchemize blocked energy that I'm scared of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And so if we don't have a lot of people, which a lot of us don't, who we can feel vulnerable, being like, hey, I need to alchemize some stuff. Want to come over and help me? That is a resource we can experiment with.
That's exactly great. The thing I wanted to ask is that in your acknowledgments in the Prophetess, you have like certain people inspired you, like Elizabeth Gilbert or Brene Brown, Alanis Morissette. And you also have J.B. Smoove. So I'm wanting to invoke J.B. Smoove because I adore him as well.
Yes.
He's a comedian. He's Leon Black and Curb Your Enthusiasm. So please do share how he is a source of inspiration to you.
Oh, my God. Well, I think he is dead hilarious. Like, he is such a one-of-a-kind character. And I've just had some of the best laughs of my life about him. So, and there's one illustration in the Prophetess done by a man named Thomas Stern, and he and I we watched some Curb Your Enthusiasm together and just like died laughing about Leon. And anything that evokes great laughter deserves a nod. But I also liked I think it was sort of too just a personal, amusing inside joke almost of the funny irreverence of him specifically being acknowledged in the dedications of the Prophetess.
Yeah, well, it's great. It brings in some levity. It's like, come on, we're talking about some heavy stuff. We've got to laugh.
Oh, well, that was our first conversation yesterday. That was the best.
It's just like the best. I was just like, I love that. I was like, oh, I'm gonna really like her.
I knew everything was gonna go fantastically as soon as you mentioned it, invoked Leon.
What stayed with me after talking to Chelan was how mystical poetry can open us to a more expansive present moment, a widening of reality. Her poetry is revitalizing. It awakens to life with a capital L. If you enjoyed this episode and you think somebody else might too, please rate the show and send the link to a friend. We'd really love to hear what resonated with you, so please do drop us a comment. Follow us on Instagram @WonderstruckPod, and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast player. And visit wonderstruck.org for more on our guests and upcoming events. Wonderstruck is produced by Nastasia Getchum and edited by Niall Kenny at Striking Wonder Productions, with the support from the team at Bailey Newman. Special thanks to Brian O'Kelly, Eliana Elefthru, and Travis Reese. And remember, stay open to the wonder in your life.